So good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start the service by offering our acknowledgement that we stand and gather on the traditional land of the first people of Florence, the Sayusla Indians. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the members of the Sayusla tribe, past, present, and future. Blessed be. We're going to start our service with, okay, let's sing Spirit of Life, shall we? Okay, so if you want to stand as you are able, Ray is going to play Jeff Lovejoy's rendition of Spirit of Life. It's got a lovely little Latin tempo to it, so yeah, we're going to do the Latin one. All right, are you ready? Get into it. Ready? That's not what we want to hear from our technician. It's only our second Sunday, so give us a little. All right. All right, do the other one. We had it working a minute ago. All right, by a show of hands, who here is a techie person? Rude. Okay, we're going to start singing. Ready? We're going to sing it a cappella. Ready? Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I put the words to that in the program for Diana. Clearly didn't look at the program. So, golly days, welcome everybody, welcome. It's so good to see you. Should we count off? How many people are here today? I think we set out about 50 chairs, because we need to get more, I suppose we can, but we're just kind of taking it easy as we go, working out the kinks. It's only our second Sunday back in over 15 months, so I think we're doing pretty good, aren't we? Yeah. Okay, good. So I would like to invite anyone who is here for the first time, or in this case Erica, she was here 9 years ago, that's kind of like the first time. If you would like to stand, we would love to turn off our cell phones and watches.
Hello.
Hello.
A little hiatus there, but we're back.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi. This is Erica. And who else? Oh, we got two guys over here. Hi, guys. Hi.
Are we introducing ourselves?
Yes.
We got Dave and Tom.
No, this is Kuko.
This is Kuko, and this is Dave. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, we recently moved to Yachats. My family has had a place there for 50 years.
Yeah.
Last of my life. I did go to Unitarian Church in high school. Was involved in attended one convention. I've been attending Catholic services.
But you're new to Yachats, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I've been coming here for 50 years. But
Okay.
Now you're permanent.
Now you're permanent. So it's Dave. So it's Dave and Kuko. Is that right?
yeah.
Lovely.
Welcome to Kuko, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic.
How many in this room are raised Catholic? Thank you.
And, you know, you always, and I kept going because again, that's what I'm used to.
But you know.
Yeah.
You know, but I always just took what I felt was for me.
Right.
And, you know, that's the way I don't consider myself Catholic anymore. I know I just was raised Catholic. And I've gone to a couple Unitarian churches with them. I really love the acceptance seems to be in this message a lot more.
Thank you both.
We are looking.
Thank you both.
This is more laughter than I've heard in the church.
Well, you know our nickname. Our nickname is, we are known as FUF. F-U-U-F. So you can laugh here a lot. Okay, and we have,
Hi, I'm Lynn Hughes. I moved over here last spring during the pandemic, but I've been following the UU here online. I moved from Sisters, Oregon. I tried to go to the big UU in Bend, but it was so huge and so overwhelming that I just didn't fit there.
yeah,
I was really active in McMinnville prior to that. I was on the board for 4 years and, very...
excellent.
Oh, yeah? You met there? Okay. And so that was such a great group, and we started from the very beginning, just a handful of us.
Yeah,
And then grew and grew, and they're still growing.
excellent. Excellent. Anybody else here today for the first time? I can't see anybody else for the first time? Yes, back there. Hi.
My name is Barbara.
Hi, Barbara. Hello, Barbara.
I've been here in the area for 3 years. I have a very long story of helping out a lady that passed in January and a lot of real estate abuse. It's like I have a very, very long story. The reason I'm here
Yes.
is because in your wording, even in your songs, it's inclusive.
Thank you.
I can't be doing the exclusive stuff anymore. It's like I've been excluded. I live out of my van by choice because I want to move if I need to. And the way that things have progressed over the past 3 years is now I'm getting persecuted for it. And I understand that at the same time it's still me. So I just wanted to say I'm healthy. I'm friendly if you're friendly.
Raise your hand here if you're friendly. Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to say one other thing.
Yes.
That the friendly thing, the only people that I've met that were friendly were connected to you peeps. I don't know why I waited this long, but happy full moon.
Thank you. So, we have one more person. We have one more person. Where? Yeah. Hi.
I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan.
You know me.
Susan.
Nelson. Susan Nelson.
Oh, Susan Nelson. Yes. I haven't seen you since Three Rivers.
Yeah.
Well, I saw you downtown one time. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
I've been here before, but not in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the speech today,
Okay.
and I'm here as a guest.
Ruthie B.
All right.
Our social coordinator. It's good to see you. Susan and I worked together years ago, so it's good to see you again. Your hair's up. You look younger and happier. There you go. So Diana is handing out some books to our guests. These came to us by the author who used to live here in Florence, and she published many hundreds of these books, but couldn't sell them all or do anything with them, so she gave us many hundred that we now give as a gift to those who come to us for the first time. So please accept that on behalf of the author and through the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Florence, commonly known as FUF. Welcome. So we do have a couple of announcements. Deborah, I am going to call on you in a minute. Where'd you go? There you go. But first, I want to share that Dean Schrock, he comes to us the first Sunday of every month to give a service, but he's also here on site on the second and fourth Tuesdays from noon until 4, where he offers counseling. And also he's here from 5 to 6:30 for a free body, mind, spirit, health, and wellness class. So 2 things that you can avail yourself of. His contact information is on our website calendar. Just click on the date, on his name, and it will pop up his contact information. As well, Ruth Miller, stand. This is Ruth Miller. We'll be leading a few classes. She comes to us on the second Sunday of every month and has also been with us on and off for 8, 9, 10 years, so we know Ruth a lot. She's got a Course in Miracles class on the second and fourth Wednesday at 2 p.m. All are welcome, all levels. And the fourth Thursday, starting on July 29th, is something we call Soul Matters. And it's got a script, it's got a curriculum, if you will, so a little study piece This month is all about courage. So if you want to come to this, you're doing this the fourth Thursday. What time are you doing
It's the
that?
last Thursday.
Last
at
Thursday.
7.
The last Thursday, not the fourth.
The last Thursday at 7.
Last Thursday at
That's when the
7.
Sacred Circle used to be.
Okay, so last Thursday, so if there's 5 Thursdays, guess what? It's the 5th Thursday, right? Last Thursday, 7 p.m. here, Soul Matters. Again, you can find her information on my website calendar and pre-register so she can know who's coming and get you the information you need. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay, and Deborah, you have an announcement, right, about Donna Smith, is that right? And anything else you want to share?
Okay, well,
Deborah, just so you know, is our president of this particular fellowship. And
two things to share. One is that next Sunday, Donna Smith, one of our new ministers, will be here for the first time. And so for our picnic after services next Sunday, we're going to be bringing in some pizza and inviting everybody to stay and get to know Donna a little bit next Sunday after services.
she travels from Roseburg, right?
Yes, she's
Okay.
from Roseburg. So we'll also be setting up a rotating schedule of people who would be interested in hosting Donna on the third Saturday night of each month. She'll be staying with me this coming Saturday night, and then after that we'll sign up anybody else who has a guest room and would like to host Donna and get to know her a little more. And then the other thing I wanted to announce is about FOG. FOG is our Florence outdoor group, and when the pandemic started last year, we shut it down for safety reasons. And then at the beginning of this year, we started a small soft reopening with just a small group. But now that the things are getting safer, it's now open to anybody who likes to hike. If you're not on the current email list, let me know and I will add you on. This coming Wednesday, we will be doing a very short, easy hike at Alder Dunes. So if you are interested in coming, be here at Foof at 10 o'clock and we will carpool down there together.
Thank you. And I'm reminded that these hikes, I mean, this is not like hiking the mountains. You're not doing a teener. You're not going up 10,000 feet. These sometimes can just be flat hikes along the beach. They can be a little bit of trail hikes. So we use the word hike as in walking. Okay? We're not running. Some can be a little bit more strenuous. And when Deborah sends you the information, she'll let you know if it's an easy, moderate, or difficult. Then you can make your choice. Okay? So thank you for that, Deborah. So 2 more announcements. Following service, as we've done in the past, we're starting again. Ruth Miller, about 15 minutes after service concludes, join Ruth up here, up front, and she'll host what we call a dialogue circle. So people can bring your chairs, gather around in a big circle, and talk about her message today or anything else that you want. You know, we want you to deepen your learning of your experience here today, right? Catherine Hemmons, over here, is our spiritual partner. She does affirmative prayer for anybody who would like to do that. And she will be back in our new library shortly after service, and you can have a confidential affirmative prayer with Deborah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Catherine, who did I say? There's too many Deborah Catherines, sorry. And there's Jay and Ray, and I get them mixed up too.
Or just if you want to talk, you know, it's just the affirmative prayer in the Science of Mind Unity tradition, or I'm available just if you want to talk.
Okay, so whatever you like, we're here to help. Does anybody else have any other announcements? We will get to joys and concerns if you'd like to share, but Ray and then Karen.
We've got the tent up out back, so for some shade. So if you want to yak and not do the circle or not be with Catherine, you want to, you know, up back.
Yeah, go out back. Okay, we're out in the parking lot. Karen.
Okay, so we're.
Okay, here she goes. You better get out right here. This is important, everybody, especially the new people.
It's clipboard time again. I gave up hoop earrings because of these masks, and I put them on, and then I have a mask. Okay, so it's clipboard time again. That means that we have activities going on here. We need volunteers to sign up for things. And the first thing, I don't have the forms because they kind of got put away when we were looking, getting ready to paint and stuff in here and do the construction, but we need greeters for each Sunday morning. And so I'm going to pass, I've got dates through the 15th of August, it's only 5 Sundays from now. And I'm going to pass this around and ask people if anybody wants to be greeters. 2 usually per Sunday. If you could put your name and just your phone number, or if you'd rather be contacted by an email, put your email down, and I will call and confirm with you.
So a greeter, all you do is show up about 9:30, help hand out programs to people who come in, introduce yourself, give them a name tag if they don't have one, and we don't have any now, but we will. It's just a matter of just meeting and greeting and saying hello.
Yeah.
Okay? And we sometimes will have hug buttons, so if people want a hug, you got a hug button on, hug. So thank you, Karen.
And I want the green pen back. Well, it's not mine, it's Chip's. So I stole it from him, so if I don't give it back, I'm in the
It's Chip and Shack's pen, I think you can get more.
Not in his pocket.
So I'm going to invite Rhonda to come forward, because she said she would help me light the chalice. And this comes from the International Council of Unitarian Universalists. They distribute a new chalice lighting reading each month, and congregations are invited to use it during worship service and to introduce it as a global chalice lighting. These words are offered by the Unitarian community of Rio de Janeiro. We light this flame as a reminder of our mission of being a light of the world, in unity with those who came before us, with whom we are a spiritual family. We shall be able to commit to the building of a community of free faith beyond geographical limits and personal beliefs. May we be a shelter to all who need it the most. Amen and blessed be. I invite Catherine to come forward. She's going to do what we call joys and concerns. So new folks, just know you are more than welcome to come on up and share a joy or concern as Deborah will lead us through that. Thank you. My name's Mary now. I'm just going to point from now on. She's going to do it.
Good morning, everyone. This is the time of our service where we remind ourselves of our commitment to each other in our fellowship. Our commitment to the planet, social justice, or our political party is hollow if we haven't started with helping those within our reach. We used to turn and hug each other at some point and mill around in the service, but we don't do that right now because of COVID. It'll return at some point. But the mind and heart have the most powerful energies to embrace each other just by focusing to each other, on and to each other, with and in love. So I have a couple of things, joys and concerns, and then as Sally said, we'll invite anyone up here to
Does anybody
be
have a
their
joy or concern
personal.
you'd like to share? You can come on up now and we can be ready to share. Come stand behind Judy and, yeah.
So first of all, I have a joy. It was so good to be out downtown, sitting in the sunshine with some other fellowship members, listening to Jeff Lovejoy play yesterday in front of the Backstreet Gallery. It was so great. You know, it just warmed my soul to see us out there again. I have a concern, or let's say, Georgia Martin, who some of you may know in our fellowship, has Parkinson's, and she has nausea and tremors, and her husband is taking care of her, but she specifically requested prayers and healing thoughts from all of us to her during this time. So Georgia Martin. And continued healing thoughts and love toward David Morrison and his partner Ann Lathrop, who we heard from last week. How about some shells, Sally?
How many shells do you want?
3.
So I didn't get to see Jeff yesterday because we were here at Poof, where we held the Celebration of Life service for Judy Chrysler, who passed away very unexpectedly in March. What is my joy is that we were able to offer the space. The family was so appreciative. They felt that it was so beautiful and welcoming. It was just so joyful to be able to do that. And our Ruth did the service, as always, just touchingly beautiful. It was a wonderful day. And thank you for having this great place.
In conjunction with that, we've got a lot of flowers in the back and here, but Maya brought these from her garden. So thank you, Maya, wherever you're sitting. Hi. So thank you for these.
Well, I have a great joy to share, and that is that our new library is now complete. Our former cafe, and there was the one room in the building where no construction is slated. So it's the only thing we could do until we get our building permits, which is probably still a few months out. I had thought that we would be done with this renovation long ago, but it turned out to be a much more complicated project than we had anticipated. So thank you for your patience with our mess around here as we try and work our way through this. But I had hoped that during the wait, that having at least one room complete would lift our spirits and help give us a vision for what is possible for the rest of the building. And that vision is to create some functional and attractive spaces that we can all enjoy using and be proud to share with others, as Judy was just talking about. This library was a labor of love, done entirely with volunteer labor and mostly donated materials. Our renovation budget comes from money that all of you have donated. So and we're trying to use it very wisely. So I'm happy to report that the huge transformation in there cost a total of $500 out of our $35,000 budget. And most of that went to catching up with maintenance that needed to be done. The biggest expense was upgrading the lighting. That was $180. So our dim, flickering old fluorescents are gone, replaced by bright daylight LEDs, along with some softer ambient lighting that can be used for meditation groups and so forth. The second biggest expense was the paint. That was $140. And then the rest of it went towards some shelving, a door, and some miscellaneous bits and pieces. So I am eager to hear everybody's feedback on the results, and we will use your comments to help guide us as we design the rest of the building going forward. And now that we have a functional library, I encourage all of you to go in there and browse the books. I also wanted to say that most of the volunteer labor was done by the amazing Steve Young. Without him, and I talked to him yesterday. I told him, you got to be here today so you can hear everybody clap for you. But after completing all that work, he needed a day off. He said that Catherine will absorb your applause. So also George did some important upgrades in their volunteer labor, and Catherine and I have been working on the design and implementation as well. And while we were working in there with the books, we found some good books to read. So there are many good books in there, and they're easy to see and find now. I noticed that during this ceremony yesterday, there were people browsing the books. And so I encourage you all to go find a good book to read. Just remember to bring it back when you're done so that other people can enjoy it. There are books in there by our own ministers and members, you know, as well as many others. In addition to being a library, it's also designed to be a meeting room for small classes and meetings of up to 10 people. And we've already had a couple of meetings in there and it was very enjoyable. And it also has a counseling corner where you'll be able to meet with Dr. Dean Schraub, our psychologist and body-mind health expert, as well as Catherine, our pastoral care minister. So they are both available for your counseling needs. We're really fortunate to have two such talented counselors available to us. So we all have issues to deal with. We wouldn't be human if we didn't. So whenever you have any need to talk with anybody, you can contact either Dean or Catherine, and they will meet with you here in our counseling corner.
You went through joys and concerns. You went through about 20 of them, so you want to drop 20 shells? And
the library looks beautiful.
Thank you, Deborah, for all those updates.
Well, my update is really fast. My joy is that Deborah and Steve and Catherine and George put a tremendous amount of work. That room in there, I walked in there this morning, have not seen it yet. It is gorgeous. So we owe these guys a big round of applause.
I'm just saying thank you again for this wonderful congregation and the support I have had. Since 5 weeks ago on Saturday, I found David on the floor, and we had quite an odyssey. But he's almost finished 7 of his 10 radiation treatments, and the cancer van. Do you remember that we were donating to the cancer van earlier? I got to tell you, the blessing of just taking him over to East Health and going back and getting him at noon, so I don't have to make that long drive. Thank you all that donated to the cancer van. And he is just amazing. He's back to walking every day. He hadn't got back to his 8,000 steps yet, but I think he did 2,000 yesterday. He went with family down to Darling's, down and had a barbecue. And the outpouring of support from friends and family for Dave and for me, I never realized that the caretaker also needs a whole lot of support. And it's been there. So thank you all for that. I'm not going to do 7 like I did last summer. But I, as a retired school librarian, thank you very much for making the library an even more wonderful part of food. So thanks for that.
Thank you. I'm going to finish this Joys and Concerns with a quote from Gary Zukav. You know, it's in one of the books that, as we were putting the books away, of course, I was reading them as we go along. It does take courage to live in authentic power, in humbleness, forgiveness, clarity, and love. Asking for love is asking for the energy of the soul. It brings with it the genuine concern for the other. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Deborah. I know I chided with you for a second, but you know, it's really critical that you all know what we're doing, and especially new people. You know, announcements and joys and concerns don't necessarily go on at this length, but they're important. for you to know what our commitment is to you all and to one another. So thank you, Deborah, and thank you for everybody who's joined in with this, these joys and concerns. Ruth has asked that we read the final paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. Now, it's in your order of service, in your program, if you'd like to follow along. I'm going to attempt to read it. Okay. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name of and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Yeah. So following this, I invite you to either enjoy this beautiful rendition of America the Beautiful. If you'd like to sing along, stay seated, rise, however you feel appropriate, but enjoy this beautiful music that Ray is going to play, and you can enjoy. The words are on the program, or on the screen.
Spacious sky, o'er pampered waves of grain, o'er purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good
this group of men, the 50 men that gathered in Philadelphia, has been called the most politically educated band of people ever to gather in one place at one time. These were people who grew up reading Greek and Latin, as well as English and maybe one or two other languages, who grew up reading the actual writings of Plato and Aristotle and Cicero and the men whose ideals they were embodying. The interesting thing, I'll give you some more mic here, there we go. The interesting thing to me about this period and these men is that unlike most of the people who lived in most of the other colonies that the empire, the British Empire, ended up including, they all thought of themselves as Englishmen. They all accepted that British common law was applicable to them. Unfortunately, the British military didn't think so. And so if you look at the Declaration of Independence, the part between the paragraph we all know and the part between and what we've read today is a list of all the things that the British military were doing in the colonies during the 150 or so years that they were seen as British colonies. And they were the sort of things that they did everywhere and still did well into the 1900s. Part of the reason that India, uprose and broke free. But these guys said, wait a minute, we're Englishmen. British common law applies here, and you don't get to do that to us. You are behaving like tyrants, and we will not put up with that. Now that took a bit of courage, because of course now they were committing something that the British Empire called treason. And treason is one of the harshest punishments in any empire, in any government that follows the empire model. So these guys, these 50 men, all landholders, but not all of them born into property. And that's one of the things we need to remember in this time. About half of them were, and in the southern states, most of the men were descendants of British nobility. And because they were second sons of second sons who were granted the land. But in the northern states, many of the people were from debtors' prisons or from the overflow of middle-class England, or were religious refugees attempting to follow their own religious tradition. And in fact, a great deal of one colony, Rhode Island, most of them were Unitarians. The Universalists were not as obvious during those years. They were still hiding, but they were around too. So the folks from the northern colonies, including the most famous of these men, Ben Franklin, were people who were grown up through the trades. They followed the original American dream that no matter where you were born or how little money you had, you could, through whatever means, either education or apprenticeship or both, begin to develop the skills that would allow you to build the capital, that would allow you to develop a homestead, a place to live where you and your family could live independently of the larger economy for generations to come. Now, John Adams was a second or third generation in that world, and he was a lawyer by training, and he said, we are patriots so that our children may be farmers and our grandchildren may be artists and philosophers. Because the idea was that once you actually had built this land and begun to develop it as what would be called today a permaculture, then people would have the time to study and to debate and to learn and to become more creative. Well, the folks from the South had already done that, The folks from the north were in the process of doing that, and they brought very different values to this congregation, this Congress that they call themselves, this Continental Congress. And if you've ever seen a remarkable musical, 1776, which I strongly recommend, because it's based on letters and records from that time. There's a couple places where they twist the plot, but not much. The language is consistent. And you can see how that tension between, we're wealthy landowners and we will do it this way and we've always done it this way and we can't do it any other way, and these burgeoning northerners who are saying, wait a minute, there's always another way. We can figure out something here. We can make this work. And in many ways, the great coup of the northerners was to engage a Virginian in actually writing this declaration. And Thomas Jefferson, who was perhaps the youngest man in the room, was able to say the things that almost everyone in the room could buy. The very act of talking about this stuff could be seen as treason. Every time those men gathered in that room in what we call Independence Hall, they were running the risk of being arrested and having everything taken away from them and their families. That is courage. And yet they spent months on end, and their wives maintained their homes and their businesses during that time. And you can see that in the letters, especially the letters of Abigail Adams. She was amazing. And she homeschooled their children at the same time, in Greek and Latin and other things as well. These women were running the risk of having the British soldiers come in and take everything away from them with no men around. This took an amazing kind of courage. And yet they were all committed so that their children could be farmers and their grandchildren could be artists and philosophers. It took months. Even after the original words were set down on paper, it took weeks for the group in that room to agree on the text. And in the original text, slavery was abolished. But in order to be unanimous, every single person in that room had to agree to it. And there were people who could not imagine that they could possibly survive without the men and women who were working on their plantations. And so that line was crossed off. And there are a number of other points which were conceded in the name and goal of unanimity. One of my favorite stories that I have no idea whether it's accurate or not is that coming up on July 2nd and July 3rd, they were still fighting it out. They were still arguing. They did not like, the Southerners definitely did not like John Adams. Ben Franklin tried to smooth things over again and again and again. Thomas Jefferson wanted to be home with his wife. And everyone was, it was hot, it was muddy, it was nasty. Philadelphia, oh my goodness, at that time of year is not a really pleasant place to be. And the story that I heard was that as they were arguing, the door opened and someone came in and sat down. And nobody really knew who they were, that person. And nobody wanted to break from the argument to find out. But that person started saying things. He was a man. He started saying little things, inserting little things here and there. And by the end of the day, they were in agreement. The story is that the Comte de Saint-Germain, who is believed to have been about 150 years old at the time, was the man who walked into the room and brought those 50 men into agreement. And once they started signing, he slipped out. The Comte de Saint-Germain is the archetype of alchemy in that period of time and is considered a major part of the European Enlightenment, which is the period we're talking about. These men and their wives were facing incredible fears every day. And I believe that heightened the tension in the room. I'm already afraid. Now I have to make agreements with people I don't really like. I don't like the way they think, I don't like the way they act, I don't like the way they speak, right? The Northerners are feeling that about the Southerners, and the Southerners are feeling that about the Northerners, and there's only a couple of people in the middle. Can you imagine? Hot and muddy and afraid. None of us have ever been in a situation like that. We've all been in something like that. Maybe not quite in such great fear for our lives very often, but when we're in that state, to be able to come to an agreement and to be able to say in writing, we pledge our lives. We pledge our lives, and many of them did end up losing their lives. We pledge our fortunes. Now, at that time, fortune didn't just mean the money you had. It meant the process of your whole life. It meant every aspect of your being and where it would be headed, where it would be headed. Was being Right. And then there are the last three words of this remarkable document. Our sacred honor. And to many of the men in that room, that was the most important thing. Their lives, their families, what they owned didn't matter, as long as their integrity and the honor that they therefore deserved was maintained. And they're saying, we are Englishmen, we are people who are committed to living a life of integrity in a culture that encourages that, in a country that encourages that. Now, one of the things about this paragraph is it is the very, very first time the phrase United States of America is used. And I think it's fascinating that that became the name of the country. It could have been named anything. Gardenia. Right? But it wasn't. It was named that. They realized even then that they had to be a collection of independent states. That this had to be what became known as a federation. And they got that from the Greek experience back with Athens and Sparta in those days. The one thing that lasted longest was the federation of independent city-states. Where as a group, they would deal with the world out there, but within them, they would argue things out and work things out together among them. But within each city-state, there were their own traditions, their own ways of doing things. That took some courage too, because nobody knew how to do that. There was no experience, no immediate history to draw on. Since the Roman Empire, everything had been pretty much, I am in charge of this, right? One person is in charge of whatever. The idea that we could continue to come together and make shared decisions was a very great risk, which is why we are known as the Great Experiment, even today. And that's why we're so aware, those of us who are aware of the history, are so aware of what a crisis we've been going through for the last 5 years.
Right.
And actually, sadly, 50 years. Because in 1969 was when the book, or the first article, Friendly Fascism, was published. And by 1972, it was beginning to become obvious. Eisenhower sort of pointed to it in his closing address, beware the military-industrial complex. Can you hear how that is fascistic? When government and corporations are intermixed, you're moving toward fascism. And when the media is in that mix, that's what is. Now you can have a democratic fascism, sort of, and that's what we have been dealing with for about 50 years. And very few people have had the courage to say that out loud. And almost no one who has any hopes of a political career dare say that in public. Because we are attached as individuals and as a nation to an image of who we are that is our ideal of who we are. We are so attached to that image that we won't allow anyone to tell us it's not what's happening. So if you're wondering why people are behaving the way they have been for the last couple of years, that's a huge part of it. And the less contact that someone has had with other ways of doing things, the less involvement they've had with the Federation as a whole, or with the nation, or the globe as a whole, the more likely they are to be attached to the ideal, the image, and not be willing to hear that anything else has happened or could happen. Has happened or could happen. We can't possibly talk about a history in which the ideal is not maintained. Now, to some extent, that's a product of elementary school teaching. When they created the public school system back in the 1890s to train all the new immigrants into becoming factory workers, they created this idyllic version of our history.
Right.
The cherry tree, the rail splitter,
Right.
all these wonderful stories that were based on the ideal. And we were not ever given a glimpse of what had actually happened. Now when people start pulling out the documents and the letters and the drawings and the songs, they're being accused of revisionist history, when in fact the history we were taught was the revised one.
Right.
Right. When one is attached to an ideal, my mind's made up, don't confuse me with the facts. Right. I don't even want to know that. That's not relevant. And that's damaging, and that's destructive. For those people to announce in the face of the facts that no, I am not accepting that, was a great act and is a great act of courage on their part. Believe it or not. So we need to honor that when we're with folks who are having a hard time hearing that there might have been a different history than the one that they grew up with. Or there might be some things that are going on in this country that we don't want to have happen. Now, I had an interesting conversation. Some of the online stuff that I do includes people from Australia and the UK. And it turns out that on the day after our last national election in this country, there were parties all over the world.
Yes.
I didn't hear about those in any of the media I tracked. So I started asking about them, and what I was told was very clear. Whether you guys are living it or not, the idea of what America stands for and what was written in that Declaration and in that Constitution is the dream the rest of the world is holding.
Right.
Wow. All right. So almost everyone in the room knows that before I became a minister, I was a futurist, and I was a planner, and I was telling governments, okay, you want to go that direction, we're going to have to deal with this, 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 and this. I was telling businesses, you want to go that direction, well, you better get clear about that direction because you're going to be dealing with this, 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 and this coming down the road. So we were writing 25-year projections, 50-year projections of various technologies and what the impacts of policies might be. Wearing my futurist hat in this moment, we're all going to need all the courage we can find. Because the wave of the pandemic restrictions was not the last set of restrictions that we're likely to face as this country continues its dance with fascism, as this hunger to hang on to what I thought this country was drives politicians to act in alignment with that. As the climate continues to change, and it is, one of the comments that we made yesterday was, I went to high school in the San Francisco Bay Area. Florence's weather today is the weather we had then. And the weather they're having now is the weather LA had then. A way I think about it is, here's the equatorial zone, and it's doing this. So, water levels are rising. The Keys in Florida are beginning to acknowledge that. Louisiana is beginning to acknowledge that, the Gulf states. We're going to see a lot of shifts and changes as that happens. At the same time, fresh water is decreasing. We're going to see the tendency to control that. We're going to have less access to fresh water. Now, there are both technical things happening, data things happening, scientific things happening, and intuitive things happening during this time. Prophecies for decades, both from Western intuitives and from other cultures, have been saying that the culture we have been living for, and a lot of you have heard me say this before, the culture we've been living in for 6,000 years, that I call the empire culture, a culture of control, right? A culture of fear, is ending. And we're in the middle of the ending of that. We used to be in the beginning of it. When I first started talking about it, we're in the middle now of the ending of that culture. You ever watch anything die? It isn't pretty. This may not be very pretty. So the folks who need to control are going to do more control. The prophecies say that those who are the children of the earth will thrive. Those of us who connect with the harmony and balance of the natural processes will do well. Those of us who are willing to adjust our lives in love and mutual support will be the ones who move on as the old culture dies and the new one emerges. And if you've tracked any of the internet media going on out there, you can see evidence of that everywhere. On your Facebook, on YouTube, on all of the social media. I am more and more amazed at the number of people who are saying the things we used to say 20, 30 years ago. They're saying them and living them now. Yes. This group, the way you are, the values you hold, the principles
of Unitarian Universalists, this is what will carry us through. That set of ideas, this sense of community, the choices you make to love one another and to live in harmony with this earth is what will get you through. We, this generation, get to be rebels so that our children may have all the food and supplies they need, and their children may be artists and philosophers again. Thank you.
And finding the last couple of words, because I do believe that's why we are here, is to be that courageous and live a life of love and acceptance. So let's continue doing that, shall we? And on those notes, we have an opportunity to do an offering, which we haven't done in person for a long time. Catherine, would you help on this side? And Ray, will you help on that side? I'm going to share with you two things. One is we do an offering for our particular fellowship to this particular church. So if you'd like to make a contribution to us, I ask that you put that contribution inside the pretty, I know, it's a new bowl. And it's even got the name Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship on it, so you can't mistake it. The other is we're taking a collection for a group called Food Backpacks for Kids. So you can put it in here. So in there or around there. Two opportunities to share your bounty with these two organizations, and I'm going to ask Tuvia and Ann to briefly share a little bit about Backpacks for Kids. Can I pass this around as you talk?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm going to start right here.
One of the most inspiring
Tuvia.
people I know is Ann Lathrop, because when I heard her say 4 words, I never forgot them. It's for the kids. And Ann, would you like to just say something? Ann has so many things going on with such a big heart, doing so many different projects. But you know, the Backpacks for Kids are to make sure that the kids have food to eat on the weekends when they're not in school. And of course, it's summer vacation now, but the money that we're collecting now is going to be given to them as a check just before school starts. And so please give with your heart. Please think about the kids, because the big people did it for us, and now it's our turn to do it for them.
The big people.
You said it all. It was wonderful.
Yeah. So on that note, I want to invite two of you to come on back up, because I have a check here for the Friends of Florence Van Fans. So because for the last 2 months we've been collecting money for them, right? And now I am pleased to give this to Tuvia so he can take it to the Friends of Florence, $785.
Thank you for giving me the best job in the world.
He gets to handle the fun money, okay? So thank them on our behalf and let them know how much Ann and David appreciate it as well.
And Sally?
Okay.
I do think that the Friends of Florence Van Fans are also having their ice cream social on July 17th.
Are they really? Okay.
Event Center.
Okay.
It was in last week's paper. It's a fundraiser. You can get a $5 ice cream cone at the Florence Event Center.
Okay.
And I believe it's July 17th, but like I said, it's in this nice letter.
I saw it and I forgot all about it, so thank you for that reminder. And I wanted to say, you know, we usually do a blessing before we pass the basket. I forgot that, but I'm going to conclude by saying thank you for your thoughtful contributions. Your contributions are received in grateful appreciation. Yes, Ann?
I just wanted to add, I did not know this about the van. Every person that drives that van is a volunteer. Not
Yeah.
one of them are paid.
right?
Is everybody in here that's a volunteer driver? I don't, we have a couple.
We have a couple in the fellowship that are volunteer drivers. And
That's awesome.
a couple of folks. Are you a volunteer driver?
I drove the bus for 19 years.
No way! Thank you. Did you drive the new bus or the old one, or both?
All of them.
All of them. Well, thank you for your community service. So much appreciated. And Ann's right. They're all volunteers, and no one pays for the ride back and forth. Is it paid one way and you have to get home?
No.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's free both ways. It's free.
And Dave says it makes the trip easier because the drivers are often very easy to talk to and he enjoys talking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so thank you for that, and thank you for your generosity of giving to these two organizations, ourselves as well as the backpacks for kids.
One of the drivers said some of them are having to drive twice a month now because they used to have just, you drove once a month, so they are really needing more drivers if you want to donate one day a month.
Right.
All right, now be quiet.
So I'm going to invite Raymond to come back up as we extinguish our chalice, and then we can move on with the rest of our Sunday. These words come from Deborah Burrell, and it's titled Kindle New Sparks. It's like kindling new friends here. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let us carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond. I invite you now to gather in a big old circle around the chairs. We're going to sing the peace song. The words are on the back. And Toby's going to lead us with his wonderful guitar, and we're going to go behind the podium here. Hold hands if you'd like. It's not mandatory. Just do what you need to be comfortable. We're going to sing the peace song. This is how we conclude each Sunday. We invite you to join the circle. If you are comfortable doing so, come on. Two of you, take it away.
That's okay.
The fans hide the smiles that are behind them.